Welcome to another episode of Highly Productive. I am your host, Hecz Rodriguez. I come from the gaming industry. If you're coming from the gaming industry, hello, you know who I am, but I'm introducing myself to everybody else that doesn't know me. That's how this new channel works. We have my man, Jon Cappetta. Yes, High
sir.
Times in the house.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
I've been reading High Times, and I stopped reading it for a long time. But in high school, I would go to Tower Records, and then I would buy my graffiti magazines, and I would, depending on who was on the cover, I would buy the High Times mag.
Hell yeah.
So for me to even be having this conversation, it's already like a super cool full circle moment.
So I'm a 30-year-old or 31-year-old guy, and this is a 50-year-old magazine, right? Like,
yeah.
I went to college, and I didn't have Playboy centerfolds on my walls. I had High Times centerfolds on my walls. So it's surreal for me. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm carrying on this really awesome torch that still I don't really feel like is magically in my hand, you know?
Yeah. So 50-year-old magazine. Like, was there any?
Almost. It's 48 years old.
Yeah. I mean, that's still like,
crazy.
That's such a good run.
Yep.
And it's still going, and it's going strong. And I guess you'll never run out of content because of people like Eric Kahn, people like influencers. Like, you're no longer looking to see which rock star wants to appear in it, what rap star wants to appear in it.
So I've had this view of cannabis content for a while where everyone kind of looks at cannabis as like Cheech and Chong, right? Or like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. And like, there's a place for that. No disrespect. Chong has been on our cover more than anyone. You know what I mean? But there are all of these other subcultures. And I feel like you probably experienced this with gaming, where all the brands eventually realize like, oh, like, look at these like new unique snowflakes that we haven't touched yet, as if you guys weren't comedy fans or Coke or Pepsi fans before that. It's just a new way to target people.
Yeah.
But cannabis content has always been there. If you think about like the Twilight Zone, that's cannabis content. Black Mirror is modern cannabis content. Interstellar, when you're talking about being in between dimensions, like, if I'm really stoned and we're talking about getting stuck between dimensions, like,
I'm there right now.
I'm dialed in, bro, right? Like, that's the kind of stuff you want to be talking about. So not that there's not like that buddy stoner flick doesn't have a place. It totally does. Of course. But like, when people try too hard to fit into that box, you end up with things like Disjointed, which like,
that's a good name for a podcast, Disjointed.
So Disjointed was the show that Netflix did, which was it was like a sitcom in a dispensary. And
I've never. When did they release that? I've never come across that.
Years ago.
Disjointed is the name.
Yeah, it's probably a reason why you missed it.
Yeah, it was a good.
Yeah, it was
title.
a good name, but it was a disjointed effort. Who asked for a sitcom in a dispensary, right? Like, people who smoke weed, who work in a dispensary, don't want to spend all their time in a dispensary. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's not like a skate shop. You don't hang out there.
Exactly. But like what skate labels did back in the day, or what record labels did back in the day, you're old enough to remember when they were cool, right? Like, I feel like I can't talk to kids about that kind of stuff now, because they're like, oh, when record labels are never cool. But like, back in the day, if like, and this is really dating myself, but like, when Drive Thru Records, my pop punk days, when they would sign a new artist, I would go check them out, right? Yeah. And so like, for High Times, I feel like we can be that for the industry. Yeah. And we have been that for a long time, but we don't just have to be, the Tommy Chongs on the cover. We can also do cool stuff with like Talking Terps, who's like this brand that's kind of just coming out. They're doing really awesome toy stuff and art stuff, and they don't even have a weed brand yet. Yeah. You know what I mean? They're just part of the culture. And like, zooming out and looking at the bigger culture, I think, is important, and also makes everything that much more vibrant, because we've lost a little bit of the edge now that we all have to pay taxes and wear suits sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah. And on that note, right, like the amount of subcultures that have come just from Twitter, from YouTube alone as creators, has been one of those defining moments in our history that truly like changes it to a different narrative. The age of information is the best thing that could have ever happened. Just, again, in the previous podcast, I talked about how growing up, this was the most vilified thing ever.
Yep.
Right. But the day that you do research on it, you get to really understand it for what it is. So as you're going, artists back in the day and record labels, they are not cool now because they vilify, corporate.
Well, the 360 deals kind of made it less sexy 100%. For artists, and then the artists were what everyone was really lurking after, right?
Yeah.
They didn't care what the
Yeah.
labels were doing. They cared about the cool kids they were
Yeah.
profiting
I
off of.
was in a similar contract with Machinima. It was in perpetuity throughout the universe.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? I mean, well,
Ooh.
they ended up being, doing the right thing.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
just used whatever was available and they just sent it because everybody was learning how this new media was going to.
And it happens with everybody. Like and I assume it was one of your first deals.
Yeah.
You don't really learn that a handshake or that like a contract is only as valid as you can litigate against it until you get screwed once or twice.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Look at Chappelle with Chappelle's show, right?
Yeah.
Like that just happened in the last year, right?
Yeah.
When they finally were like, all right, we're gonna, give you the money that you deserve from this.
Yeah.
That happens across every industry, but like eventually the industry that tries very hard to be sexy, kind of the mask falls off and everyone realizes, wait, they're just monetizing the cool. They're not actually the cool.
Correct. Yeah. And with the DIY world that we live in now, like it just makes it more accessible for people to do that. And it should be that way, right? Like if you become popular because of who you are, then you should be popular. You should have the same sort of, treatment that everybody else has. Have you guys interviewed anybody from the internet world yet?
Totally. We've done extensive coverage about influencers and just a bunch of lists of these are the people you should watch and stuff like that. And obviously it's an evolving game, as I'm sure you've seen on YouTube. Cannabis content is not, platforms don't like us. So people's accounts don't last long. People get shut down very often. I know in your last podcast, you're talking to Eric, you have you mentioned Yola. Like Yola's lost his account several times, and that's a real battle for these people, especially people who are spending so much time creating this content. So that's, again, part of this, like being the label of the space is trying to show people who are interested, like, because when you think about YouTube, you think about Twitch, right? Like these platforms have a discoverability problem.
Yeah.
Unless you have some hype going in, there are plenty of people streaming for nobody, right? That doesn't mean they're not great. If we can help be that conduit and be like, hey, this is someone you should pay attention to, and that across the spectrum, from these are artists that matter to this is like weed that's not just hype. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to serve.
That's awesome. What is the coolest time or the coolest moment you've had while working at High Times?
Oh man, we put out an art issue this year, and I said talking terps already, but the way that whole thing came together, we've kind of recently tried to reimagine the way the magazine looks. We are now doing a dual cover concept. So one, we can always kind of retain our iconic bud cover, but then also have a more culture-driven cover in the back.
Yeah.
So when we did the art issue, it was the first cover that we had that was actually AR enabled.
Okay.
So my buddy Joey, his handle is j.colombo. He's an amazing artist. He started a brand called Money Trees, and his bags on the Mylar, if you hold it up in Artivive, it animates with AR. So he's like, can we try it with the cover?
Yeah.
Why not? Let's try it. And so that was, for a 50-year-old magazine, there's not very many firsts you get anymore. You know what I mean? So to be able to do something like that and like actually put a mark on something so iconic was cool.
That's super cool. I mean, super gamifiable too, right? Like that's what's happening everywhere. Like every sports person that I talk to is like, how do we get younger people to come out and watch this thing? It's like, gamify it. They are that thing.
It's the same thing. So, obviously we have a .com, we have socials and all that, but we still put out a physical magazine every month. And, I grew up buying CDs and like having like music having weight to it, right? Yeah. And then everything moved to, first Napster and iPods and all that. And, now our music doesn't have to have space anymore. So kids who are like discovering records for the first time and like understanding album art and seeing like the experience that it used to be, man. It's amazing for them still, right? So what we're trying to do is I've noticed in the last like 10 years with like the revival of vinyl, that like there are ways to make physical items more engaging. And some of them are as simple as QR codes, right? Like where we do a list of cool products. Now, if you want the product, just scan it on your phone and you can download, or not download it, but you can figure out where to buy it now. That all wasn't possible however many years ago, but now to the point of gamifying, we're able to make it so like all these apps, all their like key performance indicator, right, is time on site. How do you get people to, or like picking it back up? That's what we're trying to do with the magazine. What can we do that makes it so you don't just read it once. You want to come back to it. You want to experience the different, Easter eggs we have laid out.
Yeah. As we were having that conversation, one of the things that popped out was the vinyl and its representation of what it is. I think that the more people discover or rediscover that music comes from, that you play it this way, that it allows that person to truly listen through that entire record. Because the way that our brains are, like, we're on to the next. We're like, Twitter, okay, what's Instagram? Okay, what's TikTok? Okay, what's Instagram doing? Okay, well, what's Twitter doing, right? Like, we're always changing something.
100%. It's the ADD of today, right? And it's funny because I like to tell people, or I don't, I'm not a doctor, so this is not medical advice, but I was diagnosed with ADD, ADHD when I was very young, right? Yeah. And I've been trying to tell my parents since I was a kid, like, I think that I just have selective attention. Yeah. Like, I'm paying attention to the things that I want to pay attention to, not all of the bullshit that's being thrown at me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Our generation has been exposed to more ads per second and more just stimulus than anything before. Our brains are evolving to drown out the noise, right? Yes. So for me, like, I've basically made a career off of all the things that, like, my parents were like, there's never going to be any money in this type of stuff, right? Yeah. But it's also, I'm kind of realizing that, like, we always kind of come back to things that, like, history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes, right? So, like, we might have thought, like, oh, having all of the world's music in our phone was amazing. But when COVID happened, somebody made a post about, like, just take an hour, close your eyes and listen to an album all the way through. Mm-hmm. And, like, I hadn't done that in years. Mm-hmm. And you should. Yeah. Like that, like, hearing the whole experience when people weren't just making albums for singles, right? Or weren't just trying to get a hit on the High Times 100 and you get a full experience out of something. It's like watching a really good movie. And they're, just, we've devalued certain things. And because everyone's creating video and everyone's creating music now, we just, we pop from one thing to the next.
Yeah, I encourage people to look at the spaces that they visit, whether it's a restaurant, a club, or whatever, and then look at the background and the sort of vibe that some restaurants go for, and you'll see a shelf with vinyl, right? And if you think that looks cool, and if you've ever been like, how do I make this look there? Like, imagine how much cooler it is if you can actually look at the front of that vinyl and see the artwork. That's like the one thing I when you brought that up, I'm like, I do miss that, right? I do miss seeing, the 12, hooded faces of Wu-Tang, like how big that would have looked, right? And I didn't even get to see, I never had those albums. My DJ friends did, but I never had those. I had cassettes. But if I could hold it and look at a bigger blown up picture of what I admire on a single cassette, like that's meaningful, right? Like it has a lot to do with things. Murakami obviously doing the Kanye West one, right? Like, think about how how he was already a popular artist, obviously collaborated, but imagine the additional eyeballs that he got on that, and people just became fans of his work through that.
Look at Virgil. Look at how rest many, especially rest in peace, but especially since his passing, right? All these people are showing all of these covers that he did, and it's like, oh, that's why that was so iconic, because this artist who at the time maybe wasn't on your or radar. The name wasn't as recallable, but now you're like, oh my God, this iconic guy did all these things, right? Yeah. But there was a warmth, there was a care in all of those things, right? That was a final, once you put out your record, like, that art was with it forever. Yeah. So it wasn't just a throwaway, we put up the Instagram post and we forget about it tomorrow. Yeah. You had to be careful with it. Like, obviously this is way worse for us with CDs, but like, if you messed it up, that scratch would be there forever. Yeah. You couldn't listen to the song you liked anymore because you were, you
taking care of your music. Imagine that.
Right? Exactly. Well, taking care of anything, right? Like, people, even our phones are, and actually, I didn't realize this till I think I went to, like, the UK for the first time. And I saw, like, what, like, New York City would look like if, instead of knocking down buildings every couple years, like, we fixed them, right? And I was like, oh, wow, like, there's something beautiful about, like, older things, not just what's brand new, but like things that have withstood the the test of time.
Yeah, erosion, culture. Like, I'm the same way. By the way, I do take care of a lot of stuff, right? Like, I'm a collector of sorts.
Totally.
Magazines, I think, also speaking of Tower Records, I think magazines, right? Like, there is somebody out there that has, like, almost every single issue of High Times magazine.
100%.
Right?
People reach out to me all the time and they're like, yo, like, I have every single issue. Like, I'm so excited, but, like, yo, I didn't get this one, like, a couple months ago. Can you send it to me? Because, like, whatever, I'll pay whatever you want for it. Yeah. And, like, again, like, a lot of these people have been bought into this magazine. Like there are people who work at the magazine who've been around since longer than I've been alive, right? So like, it really is like there's a legacy here that like you don't realize until like you're wearing it, right?
Yeah.
But like I get so offended when people misuse the brand now because of how much I know it means to so many people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
That sounds selfish, but
no. You should. Those are the people that understand what a brand is are the ones that are sort of dubbed the protector of said brand. So I think it's more of a duty. It was born on passion, so I don't think you're in the wrong for that. I collect graffiti magazines. I'm almost 100% sure that I have one of the largest collections ever, right? And it's gotten to the point to where like I want to display them, but I also don't want to take them out of the safe place that they're in.
I totally get that.
Because it'll disappear. Like what it took to have those magazines. I have a magazine from 1997, a Hype magazine from 1997. The cover is like a little bit torn and in the middle, which is the worst part, obviously. Yep. But I still have it and I cherish that so much. I'm like, man, I want to display this as like a thing. But at the same time, like it's made it this far because I've taken that care.
Well, it's one of those things too, where it's like, do you put it in a frame, but then you don't get to experience it, right? Like you're only like, I totally feel you. I've been, especially since I started at High Times, I was this way with comics. But then when I started at High Times, I was like, let me try and like create a full archive.
Yeah.
And the way I've gotten some of the issues, like some of the people, once they find out like, you know, that I'm trying to do a full archive or that I work at the magazine or something like that, like some people are just like, oh, let me give you this. You know what I mean? Or, oh, here's some other relic that I have from back then that I think you'll appreciate. And that's the kind of thing that like I do take very seriously with the job, is kind of like being a steward of the culture. Like it's not about me. It's not about a lot of the people who have actually upheld this thing. It's about what we're upholding. And like, again, to like the point of trying to be, like shine a bigger light on the outer culture, is that like all of these things matter, and I want the magazine to be representative of all of us. Because like I see High Times as a lighthouse, or like Switzerland, right? Like we should be friends with everybody. But there's only so much breadth, right? So you can only talk about the things that everyone should know, the most evergreen, if you will. And some people get offended about that, like when we talk about like celebrity brands, stuff like that. You know, I remember when I did talked about Jay-Z's brand coming out, I definitely got a lot of pushback. But to me, that's like a sign of the industry maturing and growing up. And like Jay-Z wants to actually compete in our space now. Like that's big for all of us.
I do understand like the sort of apprehension from people that have been growing and that have brands 100%. And they're endemics to the space. And obviously this is super biased because I'm an outside, person coming into this thing as a new venture. And no matter how passionate I am about that, like I understand that I'm new here, right? Like so I get it from their perspective because it's happening in gaming also.
But so I do think that there are ways to walk that line effectively, right? And I think, yes, you're totally right. And the legacy people deserve to be here more 100%. Than anybody else. But I also believe that they're the ones that are always going to find a way, because they're the ones who actually want to be here. They're not just here for the quick check. A lot of this, especially, it's happened several times already in cannabis, a lot of this big money that's come to the space that thought like, oh, we're just going to dominate and we're going to scale it out real big and it's going to, be a cash factory, have learned that it's not that simple. Taxes make things very difficult. All the changing litigation or legislation, it's still the Wild West. And
where you put your money.
Not only where do you put your money, but like it's going to be a costly game to compete for a long time. And unfortunately, some people who deserve to be here are going to seem like casualties for the time being. But I don't count those people as out. I know that they're going to find other opportunities. I know that they're going to end up long-term because they believe in this plant, because they love this plant. You know what I mean? Like there are plenty of people, again, who just see the cash opportunity, want to come in. But like even with Monogram, and this doesn't gotten enough coverage, Jay-Z is not growing that weed. The guy who's growing that weed, DeAndre, he's a lifer. He's like, he believes in the plant. His whole life has been about the plant. So everyone heard Jay-Z's brand and like, listen, that's a great way to get media talking about it. It's what drives the clicks. But at the end of the day, like, there are real people behind the brand.
Of course.
I think that's the thing that like, again, I've never been mad at money that wanted to get involved in things. It's as long as the money was not trying to dictate things, but trying to support the bigger picture, right? And let's be real, as we go through this identity crisis of like becoming a legal industry, and things like when federal legalization happens and like all the interstate commerce opens up, there's scaling issues that brands that have just guys that have just been growing with a couple lights haven't experienced yet. And those are costly lessons. They need outside help to jump those hurdles, you know?
Yeah. You're limited as an artist, right? Like
exactly.
You have your style of growing certain things, certain ways. So
exactly.
when you have to replicate that at scale to have a mega business at hand, sometimes, majority of the times, quality is the first thing that suffers.
100%.
Right? Your art is no longer as pure as it once was because you're tending to more artworks at the same time that have the same needs every single day.
Look at the NFT
variation.
Space.
Yeah.
And look at what's happening with these 10K projects.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Everyone's putting out the next animal project just because, like, oh, there's cash there. You know what I mean? They don't believe in the space. They're not trying to push things forward.
Cash grabs.
Yeah, and you'll learn pretty quickly who those people are. You know what I mean?
We're in not there was confusion when we did our NFT. Our first one is a collaboration, which still means that I still have the first ever optic one coming out. As an artist, as a gamer, as a believer in technology, like obviously, like I'm interested in the space, right?
100%.
Right. So I want everything that I do very calculated into what my beliefs are and what I would like to see. And then after that, if our fans, which usually do, find it as interesting as I do, they'll fuck with it. But there are obviously, because it's art and because it's weird art, because it's somewhere in the cloud, people are like apprehensive about it, and they'll
100%.
be like, it's a cash grab, you're stealing from your people, and I'm like, we're not, right?
It's
like,
a bigger problem with
Yeah.
crypto though, right? Because you remember a couple of years ago, like was it 2017, where all the ICOs happened and they were like all were scams. Like there's reason to do research, you know what I mean, and whatever. And I imagine someone like you isn't going to risk your brand,
of course,
just jumping into something without doing thoughtful research.
More importantly, if it's call it a $10,000 project, right? If it's a $10,000 project, when someone says it's a scam, I'm like, do you think that over the last 15 years of me building Optic, over the last 15 years of me having trust with you, that I'm gonna risk all that for $10,000?
Well, wait. So do you get where the 10K comes from?
Yeah. Oh no.
So the 10K is not about $10,000.
No, it's 10,000 units.
Yeah, like creating like 10,000. So like for most people, they're just emulating that because Bored Apes and CryptoPunks had that many.
Yeah.
That's how many we can get away with.
No, of course. Yeah. No, I was talking about just $10,000 in just in general, and I know that it fluctuates, but just in theory is what I was saying.
Oh yeah, you can make way more than that.
Yeah, right. So for people to be like, you're scamming, I'm like, for $10,000, like I don't even address it because it's so stupid, right? I'm just like, not.
Well, but that's the thing, like, and that's why everyone's like, when Facebook changed their name to Meta, like that should be a signal to people that this is not some fad, right? And like the metaverse and the digital worlds are coming.
Oh yeah,
but this is also very early versions of the technology. So like the reason why CryptoPunks, I think, are going to retain their value for a long time, maybe not quite as crazy as it is, but like why I don't necessarily think those are cash grabs is because those are almost like internet relics at this point.
Of course.
It's the antique of this space.
Yeah.
Now, for creators, anything that allows them to spend more time creating and to empower themselves is an immediate win for me and something that I appreciate.
Agreed.
But the 10K project scam, where I think that people are going after, is like when they see when Cool Cats blows up, and then all of a sudden you see Lame Cats and and Cooler Cats,
Rockin' Hippos.
Exactly,
I mean, you name it, right?
Exactly. So I haven't seen what you guys did, but I'm pretty confident.
It's an alien. So we have this mascot. We used to have a show called The Optic Mailbox, where fans would send us a bunch. It was like a thing in like 2014, 2015. People would get jars of mayo, like 10,000 jars of mayo, like just dildos, swords. I mean, you fucking name it, wild shit. Somebody sent in an alien, and we named them Alien, right? I mean, people call him Alan because the L is it's lowercase, but the I is capital, so it's like spells. It's Alien, but it's Alan when you read it quickly. And he became our sort of mascot. He's still with us today. Like we still have him. Like people try to kidnap them twice from house parties that these dudes were throwing.
That's
right?
hilarious.
So
That's
we're like,
hilarious.
so Alan has become sort of like a part of Optic, right? Synonymous with Optic because he's been in videos more than the traditional, whatever.
Well, it's like, did you see what the Hundreds did with the atom bomb?
Yeah, with the atom bomb, yeah.
That project makes sense to me because like that's such an iconic thing, like the collectible nature behind it. Like your thing, obviously people are trying to steal it. Like there's obviously like a folklore behind this that people want to buy into.
Yeah, so that's our NFT. Yeah.
Creating that access is smart. And also I think because everyone wants to talk about roadmap and where things are going. What's great for you, and because it's a real fan base, and because, again, not trying to say this is a rug, but this is the first version of what you guys are going to do with this.
Oh, yeah.
So anybody, like what Gary Vee did with V Friends, right? Like, yes, it's crazy expensive to buy one of those silly doodles. But not only is that access to his event, then whoever the holder is of it also has like whatever. Like once the utility really comes into play, and that's where I think that the NFT world is going. Like eventually this will be built into Shopify. Smart contracts Jordan will be selling, or Nike will be selling Jordans like this because anything that has downstream monetization potential, that's how people are going to want to get in.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, and that's what I said. I'm like, look, for the next couple of years, we're going to be doing futuristic shit that you guys may agree with, may not agree with. If you disagree with it after you've done the research, then we can have a conversation.
Yep.
But if you're just fucking screaming because you want to scream, like you have the right to do that the same way that I have a right to just not even look at it.
I think that like also for some of this people, this is very scary, right? It's like AI for people who think that it's going to come take their jobs.
Yeah.
Like the idea of like do you remember Second Life back in the day?
Yeah.
So the idea of like all of us spending all of our time in Second Life is kind of like a dystopian future to me. Like I don't want to live in that world, but like people are already doing that in Call of Duty and in Halo 100%. And all of these things. Instagram is a metaverse. We're not comfortable calling it that because we don't have 3D avatars yet.
Exactly.
So that's the thing that I think is the bigger part about all of this. Somebody posted, I don't remember what the guy's name is, but there was like a viral thing that this guy posted about like, what if the metaverse is not like a digital destination, but the period in time where our digital lives overtake our physical lives in value. And like, to me, that just shifted my whole way of thinking about it. But also, we are there
right now.
You know what I mean? People think about how many people live for Instagram likes or comments or whatever. You know what I mean? Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like there's I was a regular human one point, and then all of a sudden I'm like this popular internet person. Like that's a shift, right? My online person became more valuable than what I was doing off camera.
Yep.
So that
you have more friends online.
Yeah.
Which is like also like, and I've always been a digital first person. So that's always been like a hard thing for me to wrap my head around is like, are these people real friends? You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
If I talk to them,
if I was going to get into a fight with someone and I have my people with me, the green wall would step up for sure.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
I believe that. But again, like, I'm talking about more when I was a kid. You know what I mean? It was just like a bunch of like digital, like we were like kids in chat rooms and fucking on MySpace. You know what I mean? Like because I'm not hanging out with them in real life, are they less valuable? And now it's become like, no, that whole in our
so
lifetime,
important.
It shifted the other way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean 100%. Like my friends now, I would have never, as a 41-year-old today, I wouldn't be friends with a 20. How old are you? 24. 26-year-old.
He says, 26. Like he's that. Like you're so far off.
But listen. Look at that gap, right? Like when I was 17, he was 2. You know, like I'm not no shot that I would ever hang out with him as a friend.
Yep.
Right. But
But when you look at it from that perspective, it's a lot creepier. You know what I mean? Like obviously, like he's of age now. It's not.
I mean,
like
even when he was
like,
17, right? I'm 20. Like I lived through that, right? Like I'm like they're my teammates, but they happen to be fucking 15 years younger than me as I'm playing. You know, now imagine.
But that's almost like a college.
He's like, who do you play with on a daily basis? Oh, these young dudes, like 16-year-olds. They're gonna be like, oh, you're fucking weird. They're like, why? They're my teammates. They're like, what the fuck? Like people didn't get it. Now is the most normal shit in the world, right?
Well, I feel like
it is value there.
In the last like maybe 5-10 years, once like the bigger money world realized how profitable your space was, I feel like all of a sudden I see this everywhere though. I mean, look at Cause and Fortnite, right? Like just the way gaming is part of pop culture now, and not that it hasn't been. Obviously, Grand Theft Auto has been around for however long. It was just as popular to the zeitgeist, but it wasn't moving the conversation the way today's games are. And I don't know. I feel a very similar shift happening in cannabis, where it's like all of a sudden people are trying to figure out like how to make, like how to profit off this, or how to seem cool off of this space. Like, oh, look at us, we smoke blunts too. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's kind of easy to see through that.
I mean, think about the amount of invention that's going to happen. Like, I mean, I think we it's pretty dialed up as to the way that we consume this stuff so far that we can inhale it purely, right?
Well,
like,
did you see the laser bong?
No,
bro. Somebody just made a laser bong.
Tell me about the laser bong.
Literally, it's a very small like a tube that you fill weed with, and then you put it inside this contraption. But there's literally like you push a button on the top, and a laser is what heats it, and there's like a hookah hose that you smoke it through. And it's fucking dope.
Yeah, laser.
You can smoke with lasers now. It's
dude, and it's gonna get like. I don't know. It's gonna get better.
This is 2020. What we got in 2020. What are we gonna have in
in the late 1900s? They came up with this thing called the vape pen.
Exactly. Remember how crazy that was? I remember the first time I used to throw shows back in New York, and I remember the first time a guy I booked from Colorado showed me his vape pen, and like I got stupid high off of it, right? This is like the first time I actually really probably consumed oil.
Yeah.
But I just remember like my eyes opening for the first time, being like, wait, now I can smoke anywhere.
Anywhere.
You know what I mean?
You just asked me if it was weird if
living in Texas.
No, if you're obeying the law, like
you're just a businessman.
Yeah, I'm just a business guy. And if you look at the politicians over there, like they're in the business too, right? Through investment. So no,
I will say when Oklahoma went online.
So surprised, right?
They're just crushing so hard. I was like, I thought for sure Texas was going to be like, we need some of that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, look at California. After Colorado made however many billions of dollars in taxes, they were like, all right, well, we're going to legalize and we can do better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And we are launching in Oklahoma.
Hell yeah. Oklahoma is
Q1.
That is a vibrant market right now. We did a cannabis cup down there right before COVID, and there was something like 80 entries in the Indica Cup. Like, they got a cash crop again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're throwing themselves at it. It's awesome.
No, it's good. We visited a couple of them, and so far so good, man. I mean, I guess I'm in that still in that like starting stage of like understanding and learning and developing my palate and all that. So it's all gonna be good to me,
Totally. Because, but they have and obviously the weed is different state to state, and obviously everyone's partial to California.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about Oklahoma is, and now New York has done this, but when they legalized, they made it like same rules as cigarettes, basically. Anywhere where you can smoke a cigarette, you could smoke weed. And that was like way more forward thinking than any other state at that point, which is wild for such a red state. You know what I mean? But it also kind of like makes sense when you think about it. It's like, protect our rights type things. Now, where things are going to get interesting, and I think that they will probably get a better hold on it quickly before California or even Colorado has, is like consumption lounges and actual places where, because right now the smoking laws don't say no smoking cigarettes indoors. They just say no smoking, whatever. So no smoking, period. So humidor licenses and stuff like that, like things that are like smoking lounges and saloons where you could smoke, which are much more popular out there, they're going to lean into cannabis really quickly. And I think that'll be a blueprint for everyone else.
Yeah. Yep. I think so too. That's, we think about everything, right? We think about the opportunity as a broad thing, but having the ability to do this as a job is, I mean, and obviously it,
of
right?
Course.
Like we're very lucky to do that. I've gotten lucky like 4 times, in this in on YouTube, right? Through gaming, golf, and I'm not obviously the golfer, but fishing, and then obviously like, hopefully this will be the 4th time that I get lucky. You know what I mean? Because it's if you lead with your passion, if you lead with something that you love to do, like is it work at that point?
I mean, listen, you could call it luck, but I think that when you try hard enough to do something the right way, that's more than luck. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I could tell just by like, from what I've seen following you, that like this isn't just you putting out a weed brand and saying, oh, there's a brand out there now. Yeah, obviously we're here.
Yeah. Look, the toughest thing is that, we live in an illegal state, and I'm good. Like I'd rather not even get into those sort of problems.
Of course.
So like,
especially with Texas.
Yeah. So coming out here every once in a while on vacation, like it serves me well, right? It gives me a good break. It gives me a fresh feeling of like relearning certain stuff. So
Totally.
my body specifically, right? Like without me controlling it. As it often happens.
So wait, I think I heard that you just did your first dab recently.
2 days ago.
2 days ago.
2 days ago at
What'd you think?
710 Labs. I think they super hooked me up.
They're really good people over there.
Such good people.
They're like the influencers. Like Skelly is like, honestly, like I stalk his Instagram anytime like he posts an artist that like
I can't
that's
find
my
him.
Guy.
I've been trying to find him.
I'll get you
please
afterwards.
do. Because I gave him a gift. I brought him. I painted something for him because he's into graffiti art.
Hell yeah.
He mentioned the first time we ever talked. He mentioned Os Gêmeos, the two twins from Brazil, one of my favorite graffiti artists. But yeah, so I brought him a gift. But yeah, they were very very accommodating. We just chopped it up. Just went there, hung out.
So a 710 Labs dab for your first. That's like going
from the artist. Like he literally said,
that's going
this.
right to Mount Everest, bro, and being like, I'm gonna climb this one.
Yeah, you know what it was, and they took the right approach, and they said, we would hate for your first time to be a bad experience, so take it easy. And that made it, that made me comfortable, right?
Totally.
In doing that, and we did 2. What were they, Max? The first 2?
Oh.
We did 2 live rosins, and then the last was the.
Did you try their Percy pod?
Which was which? The guava was the last one. The bubble hash. Yeah, it was amazing, right?
Their stuff is incredible.
I'll tell you what. There is a difference.
Oh yeah.
In the high, and I experienced it then because everything was like. Have you seen the movie? Yeah, of course you have. Limitless.
Oh yeah.
You know how he's walking up the stairs and things just get brighter, and you hear the light bulb go up. Like that's how it felt.
Yep.
Like it was just like a.
Yeah, dabs will make you feel your hair grow.
Yeah, and I was aware. Super aware, and it was a good experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah, super good experience.
Their product is, first of all, I'm very fortunate to see lots of different expressions of cannabis.
Yeah.
No one does it like them, man. They have like a crazy, and even just in the way that they deliver stuff. Like, do you know about their list?
Mm-mm.
So they have like a this is actually, in my opinion, like one of the smartest things in cannabis, but a direct consumer play where they basically, when they have new products, they hit up their super fans and are like, yo, this is our new drop. What do you guys want? And so like their best stuff goes directly to their fans. Yeah. So like, you got the Percy pods?
I did not. I got super hooked up. They gave me Percy pods, some flour, some RSO. I mean, they're super hooked
their
up.
RSO, that's another one that like their merch is also
as a brand guy, right? Like I pride myself in being one of the brand guys. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
This, like the quality, the way that I unboxed the everything was a good experience. Everything carried over from one to the other. Like they are the most impressive brand that I've seen so far in the industry.
Totally.
Personally.
Totally. They're like, I think that now that we're seeing a lot of like non-traditional cannabis brand people get into this space, we're definitely seeing like, actually, and here's a silly version of it, but have you seen Forbidden Flowers, what Bella Thorne's doing?
No.
So she's got a product that she's partnered with.
Oh yeah, the petals.
No,
isn't it?
No. That's I think you're thinking of Flower Shop.
I am.
That's G-Eazy's brand.
Got it.
Forbidden Flowers is,
I tried it. The petals stuff.
Theirs is a little bit cuter. Hers literally looks like a product that you would get from Victoria's Secret. Like it's like this like red mixed glass with like glitter in it. It's gorgeous, right? But as more products like that come out, as more people like 710 Labs, really start to, develop as a brand, it's uplifting the whole industry. And, a lot of guys who traditionally probably wouldn't have cared as much are now having to, but guys like 710, like they've been talking about like how to make sure their stuff is preserved until it gets to the consumer since they started. So it's not just like this is where the industry is going. It's like they care about every step of the process.
Yeah, it shows. It's so impressed. Just not even just as a cannabis brand, just a brand in general, right?
Yeah.
It's a good experience as you're unboxing that stuff. Aside from high times, what are your passions, man?
Oh man, I'm an art guy. So I mean, realistically, my biggest probably expense besides cannabis is collecting designer toys. So everything from like, you know, weird offshoots of Bear Bricks to Cause is like, you know, my forte.
Yeah.
But I've been following, and honestly, one of the things that I'm trying to bridge the gap a little bit more with High Times and the art world is I've been doing interviews with, actually, so you graffiti fan, people like Cess and Rhyme.
New York, Jersey Joe.
Yep, yeah. Hell yeah. And I just got
FX. So he's like, I always looked up to him growing up. Lately, now that he does the Wu-Tang drawings, like it's even better.
So he has one where he just how he writes
Rhyme,
his name.
by the way, has to be like my favorite. My favorite. When I talk to my boys, I'm like, yeah, you know what? He's probably like my favorite one out there.
The way Rhyme can like blend color and make things like happen seemingly over themselves without it interfering is just otherworldly to me. But like Cess, the way he can put his name into anything, it's just they're magic figures, right? And like obviously, like I didn't know this at the time, but Cess comes from Sensimilia. So like, so he's always been, you know, like part of like around the culture. Rhyme has been a consumer for the last however many decades, and he does other things, but like their experience with
he's doing France right now.
He's really doing France right now. And actually, did you see all the stuff with his dad?
Yeah.
Like that, like him teaching his dad to graffiti is like the most wholesome like graffiti content I've ever seen in the world, like ever.
Next to that bridge.
Yeah, like
next to the lake in the middle. Yeah.
Daddy Yankee or something like that. Like it was I don't know, it's killing. Natty Yankee. But yeah, so telling those kind of stories and helping people realize that like creative pursuits doesn't really matter what you're doing, you just got to keep pushing. Is probably my biggest thing right now.
Yeah. See, I collect, as I told you, right? And I collect toys too. I have a couple of cars. I have I'll show you pictures, but I do like I have the majority of the serial killers from Ron English.
Hell yeah.
I'm missing one, and I don't know which one it is. And as much as I try to find it, I just cannot. I just get bored of looking for it. But I do.
Mean, you know, StockX has all that stuff.
Yeah. eBay's where I go for most of the stuff.
I'm just talking about so StockX. I just sort by release date for the artists that I like, and that's how I make sure that I don't miss any of the drop. Because
you were saying that you don't like to pay that post market.
Well, no, yeah, I'm pretty cheap. So like if I can get it retail or like, you know, find a deal, I'm definitely. And actually, like most of my biggest come ups on StockX were like I'll place a low ball bid for something, and then like it gets popular and a bunch of people sell it, and somebody will just hit it for like whatever I put for. So I definitely play the market, if you will. But their sorting by release date has been great for me to be like, oh shit, I didn't even see that came out. You know what I mean?
That's cool. So collecting. Anything else? You said you worked in the music industry before. You helped a couple of friends. Yeah,
I was from the time I was like 15 years old. I was basically. We realized early that like if I pretended to be a manager, that like they would take my friends' bands more seriously. So that's how we like started throwing shows and actually getting paid for things.
Right?
Exactly. And then when I got to college, basically like there was one venue in the small state school that I went to, and it had actually two venues in it. It was upstairs was like a live music venue, and downstairs was like a DJ room. But they did the same shit every week. So eventually we went there and we were like, yo, like, can we try and do something? They gave us like Tuesday nights. Eventually they ended up giving us Tuesday, Thursday, and some Fridays because like we were just, you know, killing it, both rooms. And that became kind of snowballed for a while. Started doing that in Manhattan. And then when I got, I don't want to say jaded, but like after the festival scene had been big for a while and everyone was kind of like Live Nation started buying everyone up, I moved to LA, and that was like, I literally moved here because I wanted access to better cannabis. And, when I got here, I was just like really quickly like, oh, wow. Like I've been selling weed since I was, I shouldn't say how young, but young. But more to like offset my habit because I didn't have the money to afford how much I wanted to smoke.
Yeah.
Or any of my smoke.
I always say, look, when Biggie said never get high off your own supply, he wasn't talking about marijuana.
Nah, he was definitely not talking about marijuana. And it's funny because when I was a kid, I always used to think whenever like it would come time to re-up and I'd be like, oh fuck, I gotta put more money in because like I smoked too much this time. I'd be like, fucking Biggie told me not to, but I didn't listen.
Yeah.
But that's just part of growing up in New York. You got it. Yeah, that's bred into you.
It's hustles, man.
Exactly.
You gotta hustle. I have a show idea that I want to implement next year sometime. It's called Space Invaders, where I visit people's offices, homes, whatever is their man cave of sorts or woman cave of sorts. Like that's where I want to, because it's like stepping into their brain, right? Into
100%.
into their good parts, right? I mean, some collect weird shit, and that's cool, but I want to see it, and I want to see it on camera.
I'm totally. So there's this guy, Destroy, and he does something, show off your gems, and it came popular over while COVID was happening when everyone's doing the Instagram shows, and like just watching people dig through like this is this vintage like Ninja Turtles toy that I got from like the 90s or whatever. Some of that stuff is so cool and like just unavailable. Like you can't go and find like these are like the original like G.I. Joe toys anymore because like most of them are either in landfills or like someone's got them so locked up and protected that they don't have them listed anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's a great idea.
I don't want to collect anything else. I can, I can certainly find more things to collect, but right now I think I'm at that. Like if I do it again or if I collect some other genre, it's just going to be a bad thing.
So that's how I felt about Bear Bricks. Like I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it because I got big into cause, and I like one of ones. So like I every time like Designer Con or Comic Con, like I always go and I found that like if it's like under like $75 and like I think it's really dope, I have a very hard time saying no. So I have like a ton of like one of ones. And with Bear Bricks, I was like they're two everywhere, and then they started doing Bear Bricks with like really cool artists that I love, and I was like, all right, well I can't not get that one. I can't not get that. They did the Nike SB one. I was like, well, I guess I got to get that one, And then all of a sudden I have 15 of them, and like after Funkos, like that was a bad one.
That's a dark time for you?
No, I had so many Funkos that eventually got to a point where I couldn't put them anywhere else. But like they kept putting out cool new ones. So eventually I got to a point where I was like, I'm gonna put these all in a box and I'm gonna forget that Funkos exist.
Yeah.
But I was such a huge Funko fan that when Funko IPO'd, I got in on that, and I made so much money off Funkos that we're good.
Hell yeah!
I support those guys forever.
Love it, man. You know who has got a really good space? Nego.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the complex?
No.
So it is fucking incredible. It's an atelier, or however you say it. And Joe LaPuma like walks through it and he shows it. It's fucking insane. You gotta, as soon as you leave here, Nego Closets is what it's called.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, you have to. Because closets, for example, is a super cool concept.
Yep.
But your office, your desk, like your space, whatever your space is, it becomes like its own little terrarium of sort. Like you're 100%. In your own terrarium. And if people were looking into it, like what would they find interesting? It's like, this is where did he get this and why does he like it? That's
right, 100%.
Super, super cool.
Actually,
concept.
I have one of these. The King Palm wood sticks are killer. I use that to pack my joints all the time.
Only thing I use.
Right?
Yeah. But King Palms, a bunch of times, and then I just kept all of them.
Yep.
And then now I use them when I'm not even,
So, do you smoke blunts ever?
Yeah.
Okay. Did 710 show you the blunt foils?
No, but I saw Skelly rolling a bomber.
So the blunt foils are like,
and I wanted to be like, yo, let me hit that, but at the same time, I'm dabbing. I'm like, all right, fuck it.
Bro, the blunt foils are such a good thing, and they have a little stick in there. That's that's been the one I've been.
You're talking about how to
exactly.
easily roll them, right?
Exactly. So basically, if you've ever seen the video where people rip open a backwoods container and like do it by like folding it together. Basically, they did that without you having to use backwoods container. You can put any leaf into it. But it also has one of those wood sticks in it. That's like it's a little bit skinnier on this end, so you can also get the front of it. I've said a lot of really good things about 710.
Yeah, no, hey, look, it's no, it's not a sponsored
not
podcast.
sponsored.
Please believe. But dude, innovation is going to be some of the coolest things we're going to see. How artists come up with different, I mean, dude, Apple's fucking inner tubes of roll. I mean, it's going to get crazy.
100%.
And I'm here for it, man. I want to see it all.
I think that, I mean, like, one of the things that has turned me on most about the industry for a long time has been the marketing behind it, right? So like even like brands like Alien Labs or Jungle Boys, which are like two of the first brands that I really knew about in California. Part of what attracted them to me was that they had good weed, but that also that they were differentiating themselves more than that. That there was like a personality there, an aesthetic there, not just like a brand name, but like something to buy into, right? And like Alien Labs, for example, like the root of that is like he created that brand name because he felt like an alien in the culture. And so like this was like a way for him to bring his other aliens together. Like the more thought you put into something, the more attractive it becomes. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I loved your weed, but now that I know that it's also like a calling sign for all of us fucking weirdos out there, like I love it 10 times more, you know? And like respectfully, like a lot of brands that are coming into the space that have not, you know, been necessarily around are not necessarily thinking about it. They're not thinking about how they could participate in the culture, how they can, you know, benefit other people who have been there before. Like, again, like I know you guys aren't growing this weed, but I know that you're getting it from people who have been growing it for a while. It's not just some, you know, the cheapest shit you could find.
Yeah. And I know them, right?
Yeah, there you go.
I spend time with them. You know what I mean? We're on text. I share thoughts. You know what I mean?
Hell
so it is. I like the relationship that I have. And, you know, if at the end of the day, we only reach my audience, I'm super cool because that's just another thing that I get to experience with them.
Well,
you know
and
what I mean?
that's the other thing that I think that the bigger cannabis world hasn't realized yet is that, like, look at the beer market, right? Like craft beers, like look at that, what the 405 North, the guys that do like the slushy beers, like that is not fucking with Budweiser's business. You know what I mean? That's not fucking Coors. It's not like everybody can exist in their own space and have their own fans. And like the other thing, just like, okay, this is perfect because just like gamers, right? Like everyone thinks of us as like, we're going to be Coke or Pepsi fans. You're going to be one thing. Like, no, I don't smoke the same thing in the morning that I smoke in the evening. I don't smoke the same thing first joint of the day and second joint of the day. You know what I mean? So like imagining that's only going to be one brand serving me is like a not really great way of thinking it, number one. Yeah. But also, these brands don't have to compete with each other because they're serving different purposes. Yep. Like I'd almost like it more if I see this happening with brands that like are aligning now as like the corporate cannabis is coming in and like probably what's going on with like you guys, you know what I mean? Like you are finding other people like 710 Labs who are relevant in the space and being like, how do we participate in the right way as opposed to just like, this is our cash grab. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like, that's not everyone is thinking that way. Not everyone is coming from a place of trying to spread the plant as opposed to just profit off of it. Yeah. I think like, again, I said this earlier, but like the ones who really love it, it's easy to see. Yeah.
Yeah. It happened on YouTube. People wouldn't collaborate because they would think that they would steal each other's audience when I'm like, YouTube is so like, now it's such a, I mean, people still think that way, but it's so big. There's room for everybody to eat, and there's room for everybody to overeat if they choose to, you know?
People think that, and I understand why, but like there are other cannabis publications, right? Who like certain ones have feelings about High Times or whatever, don't want to work with us or won't let their people do things with us. And like, that's okay. But like, I don't see any of you guys as competition. Like I see everybody who's putting out a magazine as like a brother in arms. Yeah. That's hard. It's expensive. Like if you're still doing something classic like that, like I respect that. Yeah. And like, again, anybody who's trying to spread information, who's trying to share the culture, who's trying to whatever, like that's what I'm about.
You know what's funny about that is that those same magazines are striving to be what High Times is, but don't have the same mentality as High Times when it comes to collaborative effort and raising each other's, tides.
There's definitely, and you see that too.
Overall, obviously.
No. You see that with certain ones too, of like people who are like, listen, as I said before, like I see High Times of Switzerland. Like I only want to support the industry. I'm not going to chase the ambulances. So like there are plenty of publications who like their bread and butter is going after people and like starting fires. Like that's not only not attractive to me from a business standpoint, but like that's also not helping consumers think more positively about our industry. Yeah. Like if people think that there are scammers everywhere, that there are people just trying to rip everyone off, like why would you want to participate in that? Like, so it's like for the people, like we said earlier with NFTs, who are like skeptical of NFTs because they saw all the ripoffs happen with crypto. Like, you're right to be skeptical, but if you believe in the mission and you know the people that you're investing in are going to be like, again, like the reason why I have an atom bomb is because I love the hundreds. I love that logo. Whatever the next step of that wave is, I want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And like, that's the thing that I think a lot of these guys are missing, is that you're not trying to get real buy-in. They're just trying to get a sale quick. And anybody can get a one-time sale. It's hard to get somebody to come back to you.
Yeah. That's perfectly put. Any closer comments? Any cool projects to you coming up?
Honestly, just the fact that we have a magazine. We work very hard on it. I think that, honestly, we've been selling out every issue. So like, we're definitely not hurting there, but I think that it's still something very cool that people, if you pick up and you actually look through, you're going to be surprised at how dope it is.
You want to touch, man. Like, it's a physical thing is so much better than just seeing it. You know, like if you could see a movie play out like a play, you would do that over watching a movie.
So here's actually a perfect example. And this is when...
And I'm not big into theater, just saying.
Well, when COVID happened, right, and Clubhouse popped off, somebody did The Lion King on like as individual like characters in COVID. Or in Clubhouse. Yeah. And I remember thinking of it initially like, what is this, fucking like the radio version of The Lion King? But I fucking went in and watched, and it was dope because like all of these real people are doing something in real time together, and like that's why we like going to concerts. That's why we like playing video games together, right? Like there's a communion when we're doing, there's togetherness as opposed to just like individual in our silos, right? Yeah. So like, again, I said earlier that like the Second Life future that we might be going into sounds a little dystopian for me. But if that's what everyone's doing, then that's where I'm going to be, because that's the thing that we need. You know?
And all the like, no, I don't want it. Like, you haven't even tried it. Like,
I mean, listen, I will say, like, and I think that I actually had this conversation with somebody last night. I think that what people are really looking for is like a giant open source Grand Theft Auto where like we can all go run around and like,
do mischievous shit.
Yeah, steal cars and fucking like build a building and then knock it down and like whatever. But like, it's probably going to be closer to Minecraft than it is that.
Love Minecraft.
Which, love Minecraft. But like, like I'm not going to try and meet people in Minecraft, you know?
Not yet. I mean, there was
Minecraft speed dating.
Exactly. There was a little.
You know about 100 gecs?
No.
So these kids did like during COVID. Okay, so again, I used to work in the event production world. Not to extend this too much, but when the world was shutting down, I had a lot of like tough conversations with guys that I worked with for a long time. Like, oh my God, what do we do? And that was when Travis Scott, and this is obviously polarizing now, but when he did the Fortnite concert, and that was like the biggest concert of all time. 100 gecs at the same time was doing festivals in Fortnite in Minecraft, and it was literally just somebody playing a record on their mic and like everyone dancing around with their like, boxy characters. Yeah. But like that was an experience. Yes. That was a communion for those people.
That's the metaverse.
That's the metaverse.
A metaverse.
Exactly.
It's just it's so simple that it makes so much sense to some people that it's completely just something so outlandish to. And I think it's easier for me because I play video games and I've experienced these adventures with people where I'm a soldier, he's a soldier, and we're going up against other soldiers.
Well, that's why it's easier.
There's meaning behind there.
That's why it's easier for us to lean into. Like, but also like think about like were your parents, and I don't know like about your parents, but my dad was like super weird about putting his credit card into the computer until like basically I had to apply for colleges and there was no other way for him to for me to get out of his house than like him to put his credit card into a computer. Yeah. But before that, he was like always terrified. Like, oh no, the internet trolls are going to steal my information.
I don't know if they were like that. I would have been like, why you? You know what I mean?
True.
It's like, why? There's 7 billion. Why you?
No, I think my dad just thought they were going for everyone. You know what I mean? But that's what I mean. Like that, like the same thing with like cannabis. Like the stigma had just been like, oh, like this is like dangerous, and you're gonna smoke some and think you can fly and jump off a building. Like, I've been smoking for a long time. I've never once had any of those urges.
No, the weirdest shit, man. Jon, thank you so much for stopping by. Hopefully it won't be the last time. Let's bring you back for episode 95 or something. 95 weeks. So
glad to be here for 2.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
All of his information is going to be listed in the description down below, including the link to High Times Magazine, so you guys can check it out. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.